Most of our history about African Americans' significant contributions is not documented. Our baseball history is kind of woven into that. So Phil Reed, in 1906, Phil Reed contacts a gentleman named Walter Ball, who was one of those first black players in baseball and pretty recognized name. So he talks with Walter Ball and says, you know, I'm going to send you to Chicago and I want you to recruit the fastest players you can find. Fastest meaning the best, okay? The Gophers were a draw. Wherever they went, they drew thousands of people. In that first year, their winning percentage in accountable stats, their winning percentage is like .838. That season, they beat the Saints, the St. Paul Saints, 2 out of 3 games. In 1909, they end up beating the Leland Giants 3 out of 5 games, and they are proclaimed the Black national champions. Of course, some of the other areas of the country are saying, well, they never played us, so how can they be, you know? And but that was a pretty big statement. Phil, being the first guy wanting to have this great team, kind of, at least in our area, really somebody ahead of his time. So everybody was trying to get into the big leagues, and so for African Americans, you knew you weren't going to get into that because there was closed doors, but they still wanted to have a team, and it was not only having a good team, but about making money. In greater Minnesota or Wisconsin or the Dakotas, there was maybe a novelty of, oh, there's going to be an all-black team here. A lot of people hadn't even seen a black person. They just never saw somebody. Let's go see how these black guys play the game or whatever. And not from necessarily a negative standpoint, didn't mean that they're racist or biased. They just never saw somebody. And they would have agreements of, there would be a split of the gate, 60-40. The winner gets 60, the loser gets 40. So obviously people were invested in winning. Along with that, some of the teams were so good that they'd go into towns, and if they start beating the teams too bad, the teams would quit and kick them out, and they wouldn't pay them. I can remember my dad's team playing one time, and I forgot I don't even remember the score, but they were winning by a lot early. So the guys would hit the ball, and instead of running to first, they'd run to third. Or if somebody ran to first and the next guy got a hit, they'd run across the field to third from first, you know, and they started doing fun things, not necessarily to show up the other team, but to take the edge off, so to speak. And I never understood it at the time. I was like, Dad, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're just having fun. The interesting thing about Tony Stone is, you know, we're talking about 51, 52, 53. Black baseball or Negro League baseball is declining. I think about that time, there were probably only about 4 teams left. And so they're trying to, what can we do at the gate? So sometimes people say that the signing of her maybe was a way to hype the gate. And Sid Pollock, he would spend a lot of time sending out advertisements to newspapers wherever they were going to play, and to people as promotion pieces about this woman that's a great player that they signed and is going to be playing in the game. And I won't tell you that Tony Stone was a great player, but for sure as a woman, she held up her own. And you know, they say when she played for the Clowns, it sounded like she hit around 240, somewhere in that neighborhood. There's a claim, she claims that she actually hit higher than that, but a lot of times they wouldn't turn in the stats. And then she had to go through the thing where because she was a woman, there were certain things that you were supposed to do and not do, you know, and as she would get a little bit older and get into maybe playing with the Negro Leagues or in some of the other teams, you know, there would be comments made like, oh, you should be home making biscuits or whatever kind of stuff, you know. And then some women didn't like the fact that she played because that wasn't what women did. So I think Her challenges were more than I could ever tell you. I can only imagine, what she went through. Black history hasn't really been documented. As we're finding every year, I think the Negro League Baseball Museum, I think those people that are connected to black baseball across the country are finding out, people are going into their attics or their basements and finding things that they never knew they had, somebody in the family had, and we're finding out more all the time.